Thank you for listening to Lone Star Community Radio. This program was broadcasted and recorded live from the LSCR studios in downtown Conroe, Texas. Lone Star Community Radio is supported by listeners like you. Donate and sponsor today. For more information on getting involved with Lone Star Community Radio, contact us at lscrstudios@gmail.com or visit us online at www.irlonestar.com.
Hey friends, and welcome back to another episode of Genuine Business Stories, where we have real front porch chats that inspire success. I'm your host, Clint Strom, and today we're talking with Hannah Godfrey, branch manager and loan officer at My Community Mortgage, LLC. Hannah is passionate about helping families secure smart, affordable mortgage solutions tailored for their goals, from first-time home buyers to refinancing. With a background in sales, marketing, and communications, paired with her MBA, she brings both strategic insight and a customer-first approach, making the lending process smooth, transparent, and stress-free. Today, we'll dive into her journey, the challenges she's overcome, and the wisdom she's gained along the way. Hi, Hannah. Welcome. Glad to have you on the show.
Hey, Clint. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm excited to be on the show.
Great. As we get started, give people information about your business and how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's pretty easy to get in contact with me. I am heavily on social media. So if you have social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, that's the best way. If you prefer that way. And then my email is hannah@mychomeloans.com. And my phone number is 713-858-8007.
Fantastic. So Hannah, let's dive right in. Growing up, what kind of shaped your drive and made people first mindset?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that what shaped my drive and people first mindset definitely was instilled by my parents. Both of them have worked 8-to-5 jobs my entire life, and just seeing their hard work and dedication and work ethic is what drove me to be the best version of myself and have a good work ethic as well. And, I saw my dad work multiple jobs while growing up just to provide for us. And so ever since I was 14, that's what I did too. And so I came from that background, and, in between all of that, they always put people first. And I remember, growing up, adopting families at Christmas and providing meals and things like that, for less fortunate. So I just think that's where it came from and started.
So at what age did you realize you had somewhat of an entrepreneurial mindset?
Oh my gosh. I feel like at a very young age, I started making, one of the first things that I made and sold was those little balloon flip-flops. You tie balloons around them, and I sold those. It was very in for sporting events and things. So I did that, probably was 8 years old. And then
was that your lemonade stand?
Right. Yes, exactly. That was my lemonade stand growing up. Definitely loved the creative side of things. Anything I could make and sell that I think people would buy, that's what I did.
So as your various projects while you were growing up, did you learn anything that helped you with your leadership skills now?
I think the main thing that I learned is kind of what I do now is finding a solution. So if you can find a solution to somebody's problem or something that makes it more convenient for them, then that's the best sales and that's the best way to grow your business.
So what was your first job you ever had?
My first job that I ever had was working at a day camp. So they host events on the weekends, and I got to do the blow up slides, and they had a petting zoo. And so basically I just managed that, and the kids got to play and just made sure, they were okay. They had a snow cone stand, so I worked the snow cone stand too, and that was fun. I started that at 14 years old. It was right down the street from my house, so my mom would just take me there, and then when the event was over, pick me up.
So what kind of lessons did you learn in that first job?
I would say, I think that's kind of where you have to be disciplined and not let people walk over you because, even at 14, the parents, oh, the kid can, jump on that slide or keep their shoes on or whatever, something little and small. But it's like, no, you have to have some kind of authority sometimes to where, people don't walk over you. And I think at a young age, that was one of my first lessons, was just to stand your ground.
Do you have any mentors or role models growing up that influenced some of your decisions and what you've learned? Or do you have anybody now that is still somewhat of a mentor that you go to?
Man, I feel like I have so many mentors growing up. There's not one specifically that I can think of. I've had different jobs. I've been in different church ministries. And so I think, the main thing they've all instilled in me is to never change who you are, stay true to yourself and your values and just your integrity. And that will help you in all facets of life.
So did you find any pivotal early mistakes that helped shape some of your decision before we got into mortgage?
That's a hard question. Mistakes. I think mistakes at a young age and through my career is just making sure you double check your work. I think that's an important one. When you're first starting out, you get excited when everything starts coming in and getting busy, and sometimes you forget to check that box or something like that. And I think, I've had my fair share of making mistakes like that and having to go back and correct it. And I think now, I know check all those boxes so that doesn't come back to you.
I've run across people that are afraid to make mistakes. And in my opinion, mistakes are great learning tools.
Oh,
we
absolutely.
tend to learn more from our mistakes than our successes. And that's what we do. I find also in customer service, that first mistake can provide you a customer for life. You don't want a bunch of repetitive mistakes, but I always look at the first time something messes up, the way we handle it and the way we take care of the problem, whether it's our mistake or somebody's mistake that was involved in our process for the service we provide to our customers. That is where I have found that you want to lock in a customer. It's how you take care of it for them when there's a problem there.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. And I think, like you said, making mistakes and, having failures is what drives you and helps you to be a better leader and better in your business. And so, I think you have to learn from every single mistake, and just that helps you for the next time around.
What values did you learn early on in life that still guide you today? I know you have some because I've known your family for a while, and you've got an amazing family.
Yeah, I think, one of the most important values to me, and especially true in my business, is honesty from the very beginning, transparency, and integrity. Just doing the right thing when nobody's watching, and then always just being honest and upfront from the beginning. And I think that communication just helps the entire process, and with any job and with any relationship and customer relationship.
For most of us in customer service or sales, there always tends to be that one time where we think that we've got to sell, and then there is rejection that steps in. Can you think of that first time that happened, and what did you learn from it for moving forward?
Oh gosh, Clint, in my industry, we deal with that every day. We as lenders are always competing against other people, and you think you have that deal. And then somebody takes your fee sheet and goes and matches it, So I would say, one of the first times when I had went off on my own and I got a deal in the door, I was super excited. And again, I beat the rate. They They ended up taking my fee sheet. I don't know if they just like had a better relationship with the other person, or maybe the other person communicated better with me, because again, I was just starting out. And they told me, even though they have the same rate, I'm going with them. And I thought to myself, why? Why would anybody do that? I thought I did a great job. And, I just had to reevaluate what could I have done better. And I think, that was whenever I learned right from the start that I had to communicate every detail up front to where they weren't left in confusion or had any questions that I hadn't already answered. And I think that kind of set the tone for how I started approving people, trying to buy a house down the road.
One of the things that is difficult to keep in mind, rejection in business is not personal. Rejection in sales is not personal. This is not your personal life where you're having somebody rejection. In sales, if we are successful 10% of the time, depending upon the industry, we're generally having a pretty good revenue year, with the close rate of that. I mean, we all prefer a lot higher. In baseball, you get a hit 3 out of 10 times, you're probably going to make it to the Hall of Fame. So when you look at it, you fail 7 out of 10 times as a baseball player and you're a Hall of Famer. If we succeed just 10 to 15% of the time, we can fail 85 to 90% of the time in closing sales deals, then we're probably going to have a pretty successful career. Now, when I say that, I am not referring to anything we quote, just that fail rate when I add in there is approaching people thinking that we've got an in to even get to quote their business, and we find that they go with somebody else. So I'm lumping a large percentage in there because in our own minds, that can feel like rejection when we don't get that. So where did you go to college?
I got my bachelor's at Sam Houston State University, right down the street in Huntsville, Texas. And then when I got my first job in the mortgage industry, I was working full-time as a marketing director over loan officers while completing my MBA at Dallas Baptist University.
So you are a successful business owner. You are a wife and a mother. So tell me a little bit about your husband, and let's give him a shout out because we're going to have him on the show at another time with his business.
Absolutely. Yes, Coleman Godfrey is my husband, and he has been very successful as well. He runs an HVAC company, Frontier Foam Power and Air, LLC. And we have a beautiful daughter. She just turned 2 last week. Our hands are definitely full being business owners and with a baby. So definitely learning the work-life balance for sure these days. I was just telling your coworker that we literally are running on no sleep right now, but we're making it and God provides, and that's all we can do. So every day is a challenge, but we make it through.
So first impressions of the mortgage industry, what did you find intimidating or exciting, and what led you to mortgage?
First thoughts of the industry, honestly, was how does anybody do this? Literally. There was so much to it that I didn't even realize. Even when I got my license, I decided to go get my license, and I started working on my first transaction. All the documentation involved, all the questions involved, all the reviewing of finances, and just everybody's situation is different. You don't run into one situation that's the same. And then I was like, what did I get myself into? But I would say the most intimidating thing is honestly how cutthroat the industry is. I think that real estate is very cutthroat and everybody's commission only. So everybody's fighting to get that deal. And, again, it's just staying true to yourself and knowing the value that you bring is what sets you apart.
Talk to me a little bit about a story that happened early on that was a success story, but it was one of your first, because that can tend to give us as salespeople that bug where we go, oh, I kind of like this.
Yeah. So, one story that when I started out that really spoke to me and to my heart, and I even remember crying about it because it was just so important to me. It was an elderly couple, and they did not owe much on this home at all. And they needed to refinance. It was the first refinance that I ever did. And it was literally just to save them, about $300 a month. And that was because they were living on very fixed income. They had a child with disability. And, that spoke to my heart because I just wanted to find a way to help them out, get the deal done. And they trusted me through the process. It was probably over 60 days worth of working this file. And I wasn't making much money on it either, but to me, it didn't even matter. I just wanted to do it for them and I wanted to help them. And, I think doing that's what really made me just want to continue to do this and help people, because being able to see how happy they were that we were able to save them $300 a month and they were able to close was the most rewarding experience that I could have imagined having.
So I'm going to bet, like in my industry as a commercial insurance broker, you've got training that has to be kept up with. Tell me a little bit about what that looks like for you.
Oh, yes. We have 8 hours of continued education that we have to do every single year. But on top of that, my team, my community mortgage, our CEO, he has a lot of trainings that we do weekly as well. We have sales trainings that we do. We have one-on-one mentorships that we do with him because he's been very successful in the industry. And so just learning, from somebody who has been in the business 30 plus years, he has a lot of insight. And so, all of that continuing education with all the laws and guidelines changing, it's important to stay on top of. And you have to know your guidelines because that's how you get a deal done. If you don't know your guidelines, you can't get the deal done.
So when you started, and I think we all somewhat feel this way, did you ever feel like you had imposter syndrome? The fake it till you make it. You're now starting out in the mortgage industry. You are making sure that you work hard to prove to everybody that you work with that you can handle their business and that you've got the knowledge. Did you ever feel like that? And at what point did you kind of go, oh, I've got this?
Oh my gosh. Yes, 100% I felt that way. I started in the industry when I was 24 years old and had zero experience, right? Anything to do with finance and people's money. And, normally when somebody comes looking for somebody to help them to buy a house, which is one of the biggest investments of their life, they're looking for somebody who has 30 years of experience. And, little old me did not, but, I knew that I had value to offer and I knew that I cared. And I care about people. And I think, for me, that was the main thing that I had to portray. And because that's who I am. And I had somebody tell me before I even got my license, it was my very first job. And she literally said, fake it till you make it, like you said. And I never applied it until I started in the mortgage industry. And I said, you know what? I have to fake it till I make it because no one's going to take me seriously. But, I would say probably after my first year and I started getting referrals from agents and family and friends, that's when I felt like I had made it and I know what I'm doing.
I noticed that when I ran into you in the industry through our networking, you've got an amazing ability of making people feel like they can trust you. You're a very genuine person, and I think that probably helps with your success is that instant feeling of, I can trust this person. And I think there's a lot of us, especially when we are somewhat tied to sales, we get feelings early on whether, oh boy, this is a salesperson.
Right.
I need this product, but I got to deal with this to get the product. And then other times when we actually buy from the person, we go in and we're just kind of window shopping, and then we're going, okay. And the more you spend time with that salesperson, the more you like them. And then you almost buy out of guilt sometimes because you spent so much time with that person that you feel bad if you don't buy from them.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, definitely have that, in the industry. And I think the most important thing that I always want people to know is I'm not transactional at all. And I want to build relationships with people, and I want to have a customer that's a customer for life. And so, like I said, honesty is the most important thing to me. So being honest and transparent up front is the best way to build trust.
So, can you think of a time where you realized that you had that ability because you cared to get your customers to trust you? Where you started out with somebody, you were a little greener in the industry, and it was a cold call. You didn't know them. And can you reflect on a time of when you started that you went, this person now trusts me? It's not that you said out loud, but we can realize in our process when it goes from transaction from our potential customers to, you can tell they are starting to trust what you tell them instead of questioning everything you tell them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, when I first started out, like I said, the transparency thing, and a lot of people don't realize that when you're getting pre-approved for a mortgage, we go off of gross income, and yeah, we could approve you for that home that you want, but is that monthly payment what you really need to be paying? And I'm not afraid to have those hard conversations with clients. And, I was talking to a young client, first time home buyer, and they were talking to me about their goals, what they wanted their payment to be or what they thought they were comfortable paying. And then I started telling them, okay, well, are you considering, your other expenses? You're getting married, our kids could come up. You might have, a cable to pay for, water to pay for, all these other expenses that are not included in that mortgage. So are you truly comfortable with that monthly payment? And, they started thinking about it. They're like, no, you're right. I want a lower monthly payment than that to be able to have all these other expenses or potential expenses. And I think that's whenever I first realized that I gained their trust, is just not being afraid to have those hard conversations with them. And, I think that's been the process for all my clients since.
And it's good that you have those conversations. I think now homeowners deal with something that at my age we did not deal with in the first, say, 20 or 30 years of owning a house. And that is literally in 5 years, there's no telling what that mortgage payment's going to be because of two factors: your property taxes and your homeowner's insurance. And we have watched both of those since COVID, absolutely, at least in our state, where you're going, what in the world is going on? Because being native to Texas, it's not something that I ever worried about. I didn't worry about 30-year mortgage, 10 years into this mortgage, can I still afford it even though I'm paying it down?
Right.
Can I afford it with the inflationary factors of just the homeowner's insurance and the property taxes? And so with that being said, have your margins changed from where they used to be pre-COVID, because at this point, that is a matter. Can this couple afford this? And I know people can get laid off and there can be life-changing events, but in a lot of cases that didn't used to cost somebody their home. You might get laid off, you'd get a couple of weeks severance package, and your relationships would provide you with another job. But now there are a lot of factors that, quite honestly, a lot of us, we didn't ever have to entertain because I didn't worry about that mortgage going up that much.
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, again, it's part of having those conversations up front and letting them know that these things can change, and a lot of first-time home buyers, I will say there's a lot of new communities going in. There's a lot of new construction communities. A lot of these have, over 3% property tax rate because they're new developments. And, when you start explaining that to somebody that's a huge part of their payment, I mean, it could be anywhere $600 to $800 a month in that monthly payment. They then start thinking, oh, maybe I should have a lower monthly payment, or maybe I should look at a lower price point home to where they can afford that mortgage. But the homeowner's insurance, as you know, definitely has gone up, and that's something they need to understand that could change every year, along with the property taxes. So it's just having those conversations up front and making sure they understand that, you know.
Yeah, in some cases, in some counties here in Texas, I've watched homeowners insurance triple since COVID.
Oh, yeah. It's crazy. I've seen policies start to renew from originally 4,000 a year to 7,000 a year. And now this person doesn't qualify. So it's crazy how much it's gone up. And, you know, I'm sure you could give more insight to what they need to do or can do to get that down.
I
Rather
try
than
to
me,
refer those over
but
to other agents that deal with home and auto.
Car enthusiasts of Conroe, FM 104.5 and 106.1 Lone Star Community Radio invites you to shift into gear every Monday from 1 to 2 with Cruising Car Club Talk with Robert and Randy for news on all things automotive in the greater Houston-Conroe area. Can't make a live show? We've got you covered. You can find all of our uncut content, including full episodes on Spotify, iTunes, Play Store, YouTube, Facebook, and irlonestar.com. Again, that's Mondays 1 to 2, Cruising Car Club Talk with Robert and Randy. See you there.
I apologize for that break. I had a chair that was about to drive me nuts squeaking in my ear, and I'm sure through the first part of this show that you heard it. So sorry for the interruption of the show. We're going to get back at it with Hannah Godfrey. When you stepped into your branch role over your own team, was it a little bit of culture shock because you'd gone from supporting yourself, driving in business to yourself, and now you are managing people under you and growing your own business?
kind of. It definitely was a change. You know, you start to kind of have the pressure of, am I ready for this? And am I going to be able to provide the same, you know, mentorship that had been given to me? And at the same time, too, how are you going to make sure that you're not only keeping your business going, but you're helping them grow their business to where they're getting in deals to feed their families? And so I think the pressure definitely was there, but I was excited to take that role on because I saw the value in it, and just how people have helped me shape who I am and how to grow my business. I just wanted to be able to do that for somebody else and see them be successful for their family and them be able to provide for their family the way that I've been able to for mine.
So what are some of the processes that you put in place in order to make sure you could continue to maintain your growth rate of your book while providing the support to your team that you put around you?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the way I went about it, for the loan officer under me was I knew having hands-on experience and having multiple transactions, that's how you build the repetition of knowing how to pre-approve people. And so not only is she a loan officer under me, licensed, growing her own business, but she's also my assistant. So she also is learning how to pre-approve people and help set up files on my transactions to where my transactions are still in process and play. And, you know, our communication's still there, following up with our agents, following up with our clients, as well as she's getting the repetition and she's getting to grow her business. When a loan comes in, I get to help her review it and explain to her how it works, why we can approve this person, maybe why we couldn't pre-approve this person, or the plans that we need to set in place to get them ready, whether it's credit repair, it's down payment assistance, or, you know, maybe they need to add a co-borrower to the loan, helping her learn those processes, and just making sure, again, both sides are being worked.
If my memory is right, and at my age sometimes it's not, I believe, and I remember you saying that you were onboarding a new loan officer today. Is that correct?
I had thought about it, but, you know, I think it goes back to keeping the team small enough to where I can still give everybody that 100% customer service that they deserve.
Gotcha. When you are helping a first-time home buyer What is the difference between that and somebody that's purchased homes before?
I think a lot with first-time homebuyers is just being able to educate them up front. They have tons of questions. They read a lot of stuff online. They have a lot of myths. You have to put 20% down. That's not accurate, and it's breaking those myths, and it's breaking those conversations that they've had with other people who have purchased homes before, and times have changed. And the reasons why they don't need to worry about putting the 20% down, or not understanding that a seller can pay some of their closing costs. It helps save money in their pocket. Just different things like that compared to somebody who has purchased a home before. Kind of the conversation's a little bit different. They think they know more than me a lot of times, but it's just making sure that they understand that guidelines change, and we still have to make sure that we're being compliant and we are following those new guidelines. And I have to have all the documentation that you don't want to provide me, and it just is what it is. So I think that's the difference. Is first-time home buyers, you're educating, and then people who have bought before, you're just making sure that they understand that you have to set the ground rule. You have to be compliant, and they have to understand things have changed probably from 20 years ago or 10 years ago when they bought a house.
So when you're dealing with the first-time home buyer, I'm sure there is a range of emotions for them. There is excitement of that first-time home. There is also going to be some anxiety. How do you help walk them through the process in order to help them control the emotional roller coaster of, am I going to get this? Is everything going to go through? And because they're going to have that until closing day.
Mm-hmm. I think the most important thing is, again, the communication up front, but most importantly, that they understand when they get a pre-approval from me, that pre-approval is solid. It's not just a pre-qualification letter, just over conversation. They've told me their income, they've told me their debt and their credit score. I'm not going to send a pre-approval with just that information. I am going to review their credit up front. I'm going to review all of their income. I'm going to review their credit scores. I'm going to see, if they have any discrepancies on their credit. And so when I send a pre-approval, that's me putting my name on the line and my reputation. So it's a solid pre-approval. And I think just letting them know, if I send that letter, we're going to get you to that closing table.
What do you find as you grow your business, traits you're looking for that will separate hiring a good loan officer or a great loan officer that is really going to have a successful career for themselves and also help you grow your business?
I think from the start, kind of like what you said in sales and customer service and caring, I think if you can tell that somebody has a caring heart, they will be able to build a long-term lasting business rather than somebody who's just going to be transactional, who just wants to get the deal done, just wants to make a paycheck. And I think if you can see that from the very beginning, you'll know who's going to be a good loan officer and who's not. Because if you're transactional, you're not going to be able to keep those relationships.
How do you keep your team motivated?
Man, in this market today, keeping even myself motivated. No, I definitely think it is just, again, keeping them motivated to help people. It's all about caring about people, helping them, and, with the biggest investment that they're probably going to make in their life. And just, the market is ups and downs. You've seen it in this industry, and it will turn around. It might not be today, might not be tomorrow, might not be next year, but it will turn around. And you just got to keep going if this is something that you love doing, which I absolutely love what I do. And, it's just keeping that faith that when it comes back around, it's going to be great. And so it's just go get that one more deal.
One thing, I'll go ahead and date myself. I am 56 years old. So I was born in 1969. Growing up during that time wasn't per se normal. At a very early age, I paid attention. Politics, what was going on. Interest rates during the late 70s were double digits heading into the 80s. I find that interest rates, the statements that they are high right now, that is a perception.
Right.
My first house was 9.25%, And because of coming off of watching interest rates slowly go down, 7 to 9% during that time was pretty good rate, and now it's considered high.
Yeah.
How do you combat that to get your customers to continue to move forward in a slow market? Because it is a perception that interest rates are high. With where the economy is, the Fed should have cut the rates. They should have been cut by now. Inflation's under control. But without that, you still, if you wait, then you may cost yourself more money because that rate may come down. But we also saw an influx of people moving from other states to our state with what I'm just going to say ridiculous bidding wars because they had cash in their pockets.
Right.
And they just wanted a way to just come in and with that type of cash in their pocket because of their sale of their home in their previous state, that really ran prices up in the state. Correct me if anything I'm thinking is wrong, but, kind of elaborate a little bit about how you can help your customers understand. It's not just the interest rate that that's a part of the equation when purchasing a house.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. It's showing them, the ones that kind of fight the conversation and, like you said, perception of these are high rates. They don't have the historical data to understand it. But, historically, the rates have been higher. These rates are pretty good, and right now we're under 7%, which is great. We've seen improvement in the last, month or two. So, and I hope and can believe that they're going to continue to improve. But, I think everybody kind of got spoiled with those COVID rates, which again was a pandemic, and we will not probably see those rates ever again. But, we have no crystal ball to anything these days. But I think, it's just helping them understand historically where the rates have been and where they are right now. And the most important thing is you can always refinance. They always say, marry the house, date the rate, because you can refinance when they come down. And, we don't ever want somebody to refinance because there is cost associated with it unless it's 1% or better. So we make sure that we watch those rates and we watch, everybody's situation who has previously bought at the rates today. And we'll let them know when it's time to refinance. And, I think, if rates go down, you're still going to fight the factor of home prices going up. And so, again, that's kind of where it might even out a little bit, but it could end up costing you more money. So you again, you don't have that crystal ball, but it's just understanding the historical data behind that.
So with My Community Mortgage, how do they position themselves in the market to compete against the large names that I will not state, who their marketing arms of a couple of them we can all think of that are just massive?
Yeah. Absolutely. My Community Mortgage, we are wholesale brokers. So I'm able to shop rates with over 55 different banks across the nation. So being able to do that on the wholesale side, because I did come from the retail side, as you know, I started out on the retail side, and those rates cost a lot more. You have a lot more fees factored into those rates, a lot more people getting paid on those rates, whereas on the wholesale side, it is not that way. And so our margins are not the same. And so that's what allows us to offer the lower rates. And so that is kind of how we're able to help people get into homes with better rates and lower cost. Being able to shop it, kind of like insurance. You get to shop different carriers. We get to shop different banks to get them the best deal.
Yep. You provide people happiness, and my industry provides them with a little stress.
Yes.
Creative solutions. As you have grown your business, what have you found are some creative ways to help families to where once they close on that house that they're in a good position, whether it just be rate-wise, but to absorb the increases that they'll see until things stabilize going forward?
I think it goes back to having those hard conversations, making sure that they know things can change, their situations can change. If they were to get laid off tomorrow, could they still make that monthly payment? If their employment pay cut changes, anything like that. If people go through divorce, we deal with divorce clients all the times, and I think it's just making sure that they understand that and that they're not buying a house that they can't afford. And that's first and foremost the most important thing. And I think that's how they'll be able to withstand that monthly payment.
You made the comment of having to work through divorce. The Millionaire Mind and The Millionaire Next Door are two books. They found that one trait that was synonymous with most self-made millionaires,
Mm-hmm.
they were all still in their first marriage.
Wow.
Now, I've
That's a
been
good
through a
fact.
divorce, but when you do that, you're splitting assets each time in just trading in one set of problems, in many cases for others.
Mm-hmm.
I have done that a couple of times. I can vouch for the fact that you do split assets.
Yeah. No, we deal, a lot of people don't realize that loan officers, man, we deal with so many different conversations, so many different situations. We deal with divorce, we deal with death, we deal with, people who have individuals living with them who have disabilities and need different things in a home, all those hard conversations we have. And sometimes I feel like we're counselors, but I think that's the part that you have to have a caring heart and really truly want to help people, because you have to be able to have that same emotion that they have and understand where they're coming from and have empathy for them, and be able to help them through those tough times. I've had clients cry on the phone with me, and it's just being able to help them understand that it's going to be okay. They just got to trust me through this process.
What's the number one misconception you wish consumers would let go of?
That they can't afford a house. People think they cannot get pre-approved for a mortgage, and they're so scared to even try. And it is such an easy process that I think that's the biggest misconception is I don't have enough money. Okay, well, we have down payment assistance programs. We have grant programs that we can help you with. I have clients who've had checks wrote back to them at closing and have came with $0 out of pocket. So there are ways around that. And then I have way too much debt. Well, people don't understand that we only go off of those minimum monthly payments. Like you might have a $10,000 credit card, right, balance, but maybe the monthly payment on that is only $200. Okay, well, we're only going to count that $200 against your debt to income ratio. And that, if they need extra income, well, you can always have a co-borrower that can help you. You can always refinance that person off if you need to. So there are so many creative ways and solutions that we have for people. And so the misconception that they can't get approved without even trying just drives me crazy.
Small business owners, how do you help them, and what are you looking for when they come in to buy a home? Because as a small business owner, if you've not grown into filing as a corporation, then the income looks a little different. Are you going off of year-end taxes so that you can see their gross revenues? But then we also have a lot of write-offs. So just because I make X, it may have taken 50% of that income to grow that business to X, which means that will dilute my income for what you see.
You're absolutely right. Self-employed borrowers, they tend to be a little bit, you have to be a little bit more strategic whenever you are looking at their income. And so my best advice for that is to talk to your CPA, your tax person, let them know that you're looking to buy a home. And we do go off of 2 years tax returns. So just make sure what you're writing off and what you're bringing in makes sense for the income that you need to be able to afford that home that you're wanting.
Tell me a story where you had a really challenging client, without giving names, and the situation ended up turning out okay.
Man, I've had a few of those. I would say one of the ones that I could remember is they were shopping me with many different banks. And the entire time I was beating the cost and the rates, and they were not understanding the fee sheets, and they basically were just like, well, they sound like they know what they're talking about and you don't. And I'm like, no, they're trying to get you in the door. Clearly my deal is saving you more money. Please let me explain this to you. And when I literally held out like both comparisons and highlighted everything line item by line item and showed him, and again, we were 2 weeks away from closing. He had to make a choice, right? Or he wasn't going to close on time. And showed him exactly what he needed to be looking at. And he then realized that I was the one that was transparent. I was the one saving him the most money. And, I finally just had to put it to him is, if you want this house and you want to close, you need to make your decision. At the end of the day, I know I have the best deal. I know I'm doing everything the right way. But if you want to listen to them who's trying to get you in the door, then that's totally fine, because you're going to have hiccups later and you have 2 weeks to close. And he finally apologized, came back to me. We got the deal done, and he's been a client of mine now multiple times. So, I think it's just, like I said, laying down the line and just letting them know that you know what you're doing and you have that value that you bring and the transparency of the transaction.
I think sometimes the challenges are those of us that are going to be very honest with our customers. If you ask me a question, even if I know the answer, but your question puts a little bit of a spin on it, I'm generally going to tell you I'm going to get back to you, and I'm going to make sure I give you the right answer.
Right.
Sometimes it is hard to sell against people that are just going to BS their way through the sale and correct it down the road, because I think that's times where they're perceived to be more knowledgeable. When they're not, they're just more full of crap.
Right. No, and I think the most important thing with that, for me is thankfully we have all of our guidelines, and my emails, if you get an email from me, it's probably long, but at least you'll have the facts. And, I will literally have to put facts to some people and say, look, here's a screenshot of the guidelines. I promise you this is what it is, and then again, they then trust you and they're like, oh, okay, you're willing to put in the extra work and show me exactly what the guideline says, then okay, then we're good to go.
What's one of the hardest lessons that you've had to learn in business?
Like you said earlier, not take it personal. I take it all personal because I care so much about everybody. And, if somebody doesn't go with me, I want to know why they didn't go with me, because I worked so hard to get them the best deal, and I've had times where I have cut my commission to help people, and there are people who appreciate it. And then there's times I've realized I shouldn't have cut my commission for some of those people, because they did not value me and what I brought, and I think, like you said, you can't take it personal, because at the end of the day, a lot of people are just worried about themselves, even if you're not.
I think you're correct. Advice to your younger self starting out in this position, now that you've got some years under your belt?
Keep going. Don't let the mistakes or the failures or the deals that you didn't get bring you down, because there's always a way to get back up and better yourself and learn.
If you could go back to your first year in business, what would you do differently, if anything? Sometimes we wouldn't, because even though there were mistakes, there were learning experiences, and a lot of times those early learning experiences that you might go, I'd do different. Well, the learning experience has made you more money or saved you on your losses down the road after going through that.
I really don't think I would have done anything different, because I started off as a loan partner. So I was a loan assistant, kind of like what my loan officer does. So I was a loan officer assistant and a loan officer. So I was closing my own loans, helping somebody else close theirs. And, having that practice, that repetition, is important. And I wouldn't change that because, like you said, the mistakes that I learned helped me understand what I wanted my processes to look now as a branch manager and how to convert clients, easier. And so I think that was the most important thing for me, is just learning how to communicate up front. And that's what has helped my process today.
So how do you personally measure success beyond money or titles?
I think everybody has a different view of success. I think some people view success, like you said, as money. I don't. I view success as, have I reached my goals and am I where I want to be? I told my husband the other day that, I am very thankful and blessed with the life that I have. And I got my degrees at an early age. Before we were married, that was important to me that I finished my MBA and my bachelor's, and that I made a certain salary, that I lived by Lake Conroe, and I've accomplished all of those things. And honestly, of course, you always want more, but I've told him and everybody else that I really have lived out my dreams already. And for me, that's success, and I feel like I've made it.
That is good. So let's talk a little bit about your involvements in your local organizations, your networking, and maybe any charities that you work with.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a part of Women's Council of Realtors. So that is, a nationwide group, but also to Montgomery County. I think that's a great organization to be in because, just being in the real estate industry, growing my connections is important. I attend the chamber events. I've seen you there. And so just being a part of the community, the chamber does a lot of different things for the community, and they are helping business owners grow their business. And not only that, but just giving back to the community. And I think that's important. And, we as a team, we also have worked with Easter Seals Grant Program. That's a nonprofit organization, and they do focus on helping people with lower income and disabilities be able to get into homes. And so I love being able to promote them. I think it's a great cause. And so, I think just being involved in your community is very important because that's how you're going to build connections, but at the same time, meet the individuals that also have the same values as you in growing their community.
So with a young family, how do you balance your long-term goals with your family, your relationship? Because you and your husband are both business owners. Mm-hmm. You've got a young'un at home. I can tell by pictures that young'un is the light of both your lives.
Yes, she is. Honestly, still learning that, and I will be able to probably in a couple of years give a better answer to that. But, I think it is still just work-life balance. It can't always be business all the time, and you got to learn to cut it off, sometimes, and just be able to have other conversations besides work, and just making sure that in the evenings, if I don't respond for an hour or two, that's because I'm spending time with the baby, because she deserves our attention when we've been gone all day. So I think it's just having those boundaries.
That's great. So what are your long-term goals with your business?
My long-term goal for my business is, just continue to be referral only, and because I think referrals are the best source of growing your business. So that, and being able to see my husband's business grow and me be able to help him to grow it into just a big business, where we have a few more employees under him. Me maybe having more loan officers under me as well. Just building a brand for ourselves, to be able to help people in all kinds of ways, and being able to get to a point where I can give back more to people and to the community, like you said, to these organizations. I want to be able to bring in enough revenue that I can give back. I've always said that I don't need to make a lot of money. I don't need to be wealthy. But if I am, and if I'm ever blessed to be, I want to be able to give back to people.
So what do you want people to think about you as a business leader?
Just that I am not afraid to take on a challenge, and I will always give everything 110% to get a deal done. And just, again, that I have the integrity behind it to make sure that we're always in compliance, and I will always be doing the right thing, no matter what.
Just so you know, you're on a great track, because that is how people view you that I know in business that know you. We're going to do something we call the lightning round.
Oh, gosh.
Coffee or tea to power through the day?
Oh, coffee. I drink coffee like water, which is probably bad, but I mean, it gets me through.
I do the same thing. I can go in of an evening and get a cup of coffee at 9 o'clock at night, and my girlfriend will look at me and go, "You're drinking coffee?
Oh, yeah.
You're not going to sleep?" And I'm going to go, "It won't keep me from sleeping."
Coleman asks me that all the time. He's like, "How are you drinking that in the middle of the day?"
First thing you do when you start your morning routine?
My morning routine is I make a pot of coffee. I have my cup of coffee. I am very strong in my faith, so I read my Bible. And I actually just started F45, so I started working out. So that's like my first 3 things of the day. And I think it just helps me to have the energy that I need and just the right mindset to start my day.
Fantastic. What is your favorite business or personal book that's inspired you?
Not gonna lie, I'm really bad about reading books. Always was. So I
Audible.
can't. Yeah.
I've gone through over 400 and something books
Really?
with Audible, because I will put it on driving to a meeting. It kind of lets my mind take the creative side, because I can listen to a book and in my mind I'm actually watching the movie on TV, but it refreshes my mind before I head into another meeting or something. So business books, it's a lot easier for me to do that than driving down the road or working on a project or home, to have that book on in my ears so that I'm getting what I want from reading. But for me to sit down and read, the ADD, I have been known to read a chapter 3 times, because I will start reading it.
Too.
My eyes are reading the words, but I can't shut down the creative side of my mind, where even if it's just a book for entertainment, all of a sudden I will be planning out my next marketing move that I want to do with my business, or a problem that I've got to solve, or, things like that.
I need to try that out, because honestly, I would love to read more books, and definitely more business books. I actually had posted that on Facebook, like, give me y'all's recommendations. I've yet to read any of them, but I would love to say that I've read a full book.
Best piece of advice you've ever received?
Man, that's a hard one. I think, again, just staying true to yourself, not being afraid to stay true to yourself always, no matter what, even if it means standing alone.
If you weren't in lending, what would you be doing?
My background is marketing and communications. I don't know that I would be doing anything else, because I feel like lending has all of those things in it. But I always thought it'd be cool to be a nurse, but I also don't have that ability, because in situations I feel like I might panic. But I've always commended them and think they're amazing at what they do.
One thing that most people don't know about you?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know what people don't know about me. I feel like I'm a pretty open book. I felt like a lot of people didn't know that I had gotten my MBA, but I did. And
Congratulations.
Thank you. And that I'm 29 years old. I'm pretty young.
What's one song that always gets you motivated?
One song that always gets me motivated. My husband makes fun of me because he's the music guru and I'm terrible at picking headlines of like titles of songs and everything. But I would say, I love the song Waymaker, just because, again, it goes back to my faith and that I can do all things through Christ.
Christina DeMarco's It Is Well with Bethel Is Mine.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Finish this sentence. Success to me is...
Success to me is feeling accomplished in your heart by having gratitude for the things that you have.
So, Hannah, I want you to once again tell people how they can get in touch with you for your business.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can email me or call me. I always answer. So my email is hannah@mychomeloans.com and my phone number is 713-858-8007.
We want to thank everybody for tuning in to Genuine Business Stories today. Hannah, thank you so much for coming on the show. I love your story, but I also love your family. And I feel like we had a good show getting people to know you a little bit more about your business so they could understand the personal side. If you're enjoying our show, we'd love for you to consider becoming a sponsor or simply sharing this episode with a friend or fellow entrepreneur. And hey, if you know a business owner that you think has a great story, have them reach out to the radio station. We would love to see if they'd be a good fit for the show. And we're going to leave you with one inspirational quote. Don't wait for opportunity, create it. George Bernard Shaw. Thank you, everybody, for joining.